run-of-the-mill type guy. I know, big sold out. I never gonna look at yourself like the others around you. Good Lord, you have never asked why. And seriously, big so bad. Don't you think that big blue sky out there? And then, wouldn't it be nice to cut yourself a slice of a pie? And your lips on the chocolate when you reminisce in years to come. Will you ever find that Sunday song you've been looking so hard to find? So do what you gotta do. Yeah, years been good to you. Cause you're one of my favorite few.
Sometimes people will say that, you know, it's unique to see someone who's Chinese singing jazz, and that always stirs a little bit of conversation.
I started piano when I was 7, classical piano, which I did on and off for about 10 years or so, got up to like grade 10, Royal Conservatory. And then I went to music college and I decided to switch to voice. You know, I didn't particularly like the direction that my individual private music instructor had for me in piano, so I thought I'd start over with a Japanese man, Tatsuo Hoshina, at Douglas College I was going to at the time. And I just started from scratch, and he was a great musician and a really nice man, and I started to get really hooked on voice.
Well, let's talk a little bit perhaps of your childhood and what kind of musical influence, or how is it that you came into jazz when the mainstream of music is usually sort of country and western or rock and roll?
Rock and roll. Well, classical piano for a long time. I was pretty much like any other kid. I played it, and I also wanted to skip out of it at the same time and not do it. But I did maintain it for a while, and I probably was a typical snotty little adolescent about it. You know, I thought that if you didn't play classical music, you probably weren't very hip or something. I definitely had attitudes about it. And I kind of missed, I think by accident, maybe because of the classical stuff, I was just into classical music. I missed a lot of rock and roll and folk stuff in a lot of the 60s. I just kind of missed. And my brother, who's 8 years older than me, was listening to a lot of jazz, a lot of different types of jazz. And I really liked a lot of what was going on there. And as soon as I started to understand that the art form was, in my opinion, as high as it was in classical music, I found, you know, that I started to get more interested in it because I could see a lot of challenge in it. Musically, there's like a whole improvisatory point of view with jazz that doesn't exist in other kinds of music, or if it does, it's not as featured as it is in jazz, and I really like that because it spells freedom. And for a while I played in rock bands and did some middle of the road, you know, those kind of bands where you, at the time it was disco. We did a lot of disco music and stuff like that in the States and in Western Canada and places like that. And I can't really say that I related to that trip. It felt, for me, it felt like it wasn't going to be as free as jazz, even though at that time I wasn't all that interested in jazz. But I did find it restrictive. And I also felt that in that idiom, it would be hard to age. It was very important what you looked like. And the social aspect of it, the rock star party stereotype that goes along with it, I don't think really suits me. I'm not that kind of a person. I'm not, you know, I don't know. I don't relate to that very well. So I did it because it was still music and I liked it and it provided money and it was interesting. But I don't have any desire to go back into it. You know, I'm really thankful that jazz is not like that. It's whether you sing well or not, and you can be fat or old or purple or green or yellow or white. You want to be as good as you can be, and that's how people relate to you, and I really like that.
Every time I see you, I say, that kick don't explain it to me. You obviously don't adore me. start jerking her side. Smart idea. Get up, get out of here. Out of
Let's go a little back, perhaps, to the time when you were just a little girl. As I understand, you were born in Vernon and came to Vancouver at a rather young age. And I'm just wondering if you could relate, perhaps, some of the experiences that you might have had growing up.
Let me think. Yeah, I think I had my fair share of whatever happens to Chinese Canadians. When I was really small, you know, I had some negative experiences like anyone else, and my mother came up with some great stories that made me feel a lot better about life. Some of them are actually pretty reverse racist themselves. I didn't think of them that way. They were just comforting to me. And I didn't really think about my role as a Chinese Canadian very much until I hit high school, around about grade 11 and grade 12. My brother is 8 years older than me, and he got very interested in the Asian Canadian movement, which at that time I guess was relatively new. And he had a lot of friends who were interested in it, and you know, I was just his kid sister who wanted to see what his life was all about. So I started to hang out at some of those conferences and things like that, and it affected the way that how I see my psychological perspective. I mean, there was a period that I did the pendulum swing thing where I went, you mean I actually didn't, you know what I'm talking about? That thing where I kind of realized that maybe I had a perspective that wasn't quite Canadian and wasn't quite Asian either, because, you know, I was kind of born in two places.
It's a future for whoever's good, you know, no matter what nationality they come from. I think that's one thing that's so wonderful about the jazz world, is that it doesn't really matter what size or shape, and there's no pressure to wear a certain type of costume or to spike your hair this way or that way, you know. The pressure is to do your job well. And so there's hope for anybody who's going to stay at it and have talent.